Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Summer Kids Club Tea Time at 10. As promised, today we have a special guest by the name of Rick Travis. I'm so excited to have Rick with us today because he has been with the Head Start agency for years. He is our family service coordinator, so you may see him at the sites on occasion when he's visiting and checking in with the sites that he works with. You may have seen him at our Family Day functions as a volunteer. He's been working with us for so long, and he's such a huge, crucial member of this agency. He is very passionate about today's topic, and it's male involvement. He's done trainings with it. In fact, I've had a very influential training by Rick Travis when I first started working for this program myself, and it made a lasting impression on me. And so I only thought it was fitting to have him as our guest today on this subject, being it as he knows so much about this. So I'm just going to pass it over to him. And today, this is male involvement. Again, Rick Travis.
Wow, thanks for the great introduction, Paige. That was wonderful. I really appreciate that. So welcome everybody, and thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And yeah, male involvement, father involvement is something that I'm really passionate about. I'm a dad myself. My daughter is now a young lady. She just turned 18. And I've been one of those super involved dads since the beginning. She's my only child. We waited, I'm an older dad. I think I was 35 when we got pregnant. But it has been the most rewarding experience of my life. And so I really got passionate about male involvement because I just don't want other dads to miss the experience that, I personally had myself. And, if you don't get involved with your kids, then you miss those experiences. And so it's become a pretty passionate topic of mine. And as Paige said, yeah, I've done some trainings. I've created some trainings around it to help from even, to get males involved. It has to start with us as the professionals, and changing our language and changing how we look at, the family unit. And male involvement doesn't mean just an actual father. Male involvement can be a bio dad, a stepdad, it could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, it could be a friend of the family. I know that we know that there's a lot of single parents out there. That includes single fathers too. And we're not in any way saying that mother involvement is not as equally as important, because it is. The statistics show that when a child early on has two involved parents in their life, that they thrive much greater than a child that does not. So and dads, we do things differently than moms do. We play differently, we discipline differently, we read to our children differently. It's just a different way. And so it's that other aspect of parenting that, and it would be the same with moms. If it was a single dad, and we could be having this conversation about, mom's role and how they play differently, how they discipline differently, and how they read to their children differently. And it would be just as detrimental for a child to not have that other role too. So it takes both those roles. And again, it does not have to be a bio dad. It'd be great. That's the optimal situation. But just having that male figure in a child's life is super important.
I love that, Rick. And I'm so glad that you explained for everybody that it's not just a biological dad. Of course, that's the ideal, right? Because the studies say the impact with a biological father being involved is so impactful. But it can be more than that. It's a male figure in general. So like you said, you gave great examples, a grandfather, an uncle, perhaps a really close family friend who has decided to kind of step up and fill a fatherful role. And I think that's important, because when we hear the word male involvement, I think it's easy for our brains to go to just thinking about a father. But it's important to remind ourselves that anybody can step into the role of a father position, whether it's biological or not, a stepdad. And just having that male role figure in a child's life is going to be so beneficial for them. And I love that you mentioned that and clarified that for our families who watch this. I wanted to ask you, so we talked a little bit about it, but how and what are the benefits of having fathers involved into their early childhood education, into their child's lives?
Right, that's a good question, Paige. And so studies have shown that cognitively kids progress a lot greater. Their math scores, their reading scores are higher. Their social skills are greater. And so when we look at the way a child typically develops, the developmental stages are just far greater with a child that has two involved parents or parent figures in their life than a child that does not. So that's why we really want to encourage, families to have that male involvement. And it comes down to really, what is the comfort of how do we get dads involved? I mean, or how do we get males involved? I'm going to be saying dads because that's kind of what we're talking about, but you understand that we're talking about just male involvement in general. And I said earlier, as professionals, we have to start looking at the way we look at things, because oftentimes, you talk to a teacher, it's like, oh, well, this child's not at school today. Who are you going to call? Mom, and that the thought to call dad, unless it's a single dad, and that's the parental, the person that's raising that child, dad never really comes to the forethought. One of the things that used to get me is I used to do all the cooking in my family. And I did all the shopping. And so, I would go to Rayleigh's where we typically shop, and they'd have these banners hanging from the ceiling that said, Mom asked and we provided, and it's like, yo, dad here, dad shopping, dad cooking, wise. And so that's what I'm talking about, is that just even in media, in one of my presentations that I do on male involvement, I have these commercials where obviously it's the commercials. You look at the commercials, they're always geared towards mom. But then at some point there started to be a shift where, some companies started recognizing the benefit of male involvement, and they started changing their media presentations, and they started including dads, or, dads were doing the shopping, dads are doing the diapering the baby and things like that. So, in really to get us guys involved, you need to make it so it's comfortable for us, inviting for us, and that we feel wanted. I mean, that's kind of really what it is. A lot of guys kind of get turned off because, they're like, if I take a phone call and they're like, well, this is so-and-so's teacher, is mom there? Can I speak to mom? And it's like, well, what's wrong with speaking to me? What's wrong with speaking to dad? So just getting past that and getting to the point where we make it comfortable for guys to get involved. And what does that look like, getting involved? That means that, that male figure, that dad, is talking to their child every day. How was school? What did you learn? Engaging in that child's, excitement about what they learned in school that day, sitting down and listening to what the child has to say, taking the time to spend time to do activities with their child. With Head Start, we send activities home each week for our families to do with their kids, and taking the time to actually do those activities with your child. I mean, there's just so many benefits to that child having that other role model in their life that it just makes for a much happier child, and the dad's going to get some great experiences that he'll never forget. That's been my experience as a dad, is just so many memories that once that child's older, you can't get those back. So it's important to seize that now and make those memories now.
I love that. And that's so true, because this is such a critical age, especially because, in Head Start, we talk about the importance of child development from birth to 5 years. And that's like, that time frame and that time span is so precious, because that's when the child is learning so much. And so you'll often hear in Head Start us talk about, in First 5 too, that the first 5 years of a child's life that's when all of their experiences that they have in that time frame have the lasting impact on who they will be as young adults, and eventually, you know, when they have families of their own, and you know, how they go about living out the rest of their lives and how they interact with their future children. And not only is it just wonderful for male figures to be involved in their children's lives, but it does have a lasting impact, because I've been reading, and men who are more involved and have that connection established with children at a early and young age, those children are likely to grow up and continue fostering close connections with their offspring. And so you're forming a really healthy pattern. And I like that you bring up the social norms in terms of, you know, bringing about awareness to, you know, those commercials that are targeted at mothers, and how even as educators, we need to look at our own biases, even if they're unidentified, questioning ourselves. Hey, dad is a reputable source too. We can ask, you know, we can ask dad why, you know, Bobby was out sick today, right? So I'm really glad you highlighted that. And, you know, too, just to throw it in there, I was reading on ECLEC, which is a Head Start main page. You guys can go there for lots of additional information, as well as father engagement. There's a huge article on there. And one of the things that they said was children who are 18 months to 24 months were more secure with their explorations of the world by just having a male figure involved in their lives. They had increased enthusiasm and curiosity because, like Rick was saying, moms teach differently and dads teach differently, but both roles are vital and very important into a child's development. It's just in different ways. And that's what makes such a well-rounded child. And that's not to say if you don't have a male figure that your child won't be well-rounded. No, it just shows that there's a lot of benefits that come out of it. You know, because fathers play rough and they play hard and they play loud, and they push boundaries and they push limits. And as we've talked about before, we want our children to push their boundaries, to push their limits, to problem solve and to get curious. And male involvement plays a huge role in your children learning on how to develop those skill sets. So I'm really glad you shared that with us, Rick. And another quick question for you is, you know, say you're a single mom and you've just moved to town, and I'm just giving a scenario, and maybe like your family is located, say, in Southern California and you're here in Northern California. What would be some tips or advice that you may have on how to promote male involvement without having a male directly in your life at that moment in time? What are some suggestions that you might have?
So I've got a couple, but before I do that, I want to share just a personal experience in terms of the benefits of, you know, just being involved in your child's life at an early age. So I'm an avid reader, so is my wife. And when we were pregnant, I would read books to my daughter in utero. We didn't know she was our daughter at that point because we didn't find out what we were having until she was born. But it didn't matter. But I would sit there and read books, you know, children's books to my wife's tummy. And to this day, my daughter, you will find her reading 3 books at a time. I mean, she can't just read one book. She's like in the middle of 3 books. English, now that she's in her first year of college, she excelled in English and literature all through high school. And it is her passion and her strong suit in college as well. So that's just from a personal perspective of, you know, being there, reading to my child. And of course, you know, we read to her every night after she was born too, but we didn't wait till she was born. We started when she was still incubating. So that's just one personal experience I like to share when I'm talking about, you know, what are the benefits of being involved with your child at a very early age. I would say to that single mom, you know, Big Brother, Big Sister is a great program. So Big Brother is another way that you can reach out to a community that's, you know, their purpose is to provide that male or female figure for a child in their life. You can find different support groups that can help that parent connect with other parents that are maybe in the same situation, and find out what they've done. You know, relying on family is a really good resource. We all have family, and we may have a big family, we may have a small family, but you know, there's always family members that, well, I want to say always, but maybe not. But you know, in most cases, there's always family members that you can reach out to as well. Um, you know, and just really socializing the child. You know, play dates, going to the park, you know, things like that, where they have exposure to other kids or maybe other adults. You know, things like that, or just some of the ones that come to mind right off the top of my head. Families that are, you know, religious can get involved with their church group. There's usually a lot of very positive male role models in those communities as well. You know, looking into your ethnic groups. We have, you know, in our community, we have Native Americans, we have Hispanic families, you know, and so looking into your own culture in terms of who's out there, what are they doing to, you know, kind of fill that void if they're lacking that resource for a male figure or a female figure in the child's life.
I love that. Thank you so much. That was such a clear and straightforward answer. And thank you for providing a list of resources that families could look into if they say are watching this and had that same question of how do I have male involvement if I'm all by myself? And I think you provided some really good options for our families. And Big Brother Big Sister is fabulous as well. I have to just throw in my 2 cents about that, because I've volunteered with them in the past, and they're really great. They're a really great agency, and the kids benefit a lot being involved in that. So that's a good one. I'm glad you mentioned that.
So it would be a good time. I have a video that I've used in some of my male involvement presentations in the past that I think is just awesome. I think now may be a good time to show that. And so just to lead into this video, this is a dad who is you know, giving his young daughter some positive encouragement before she starts her school day. And I'm gonna warn you right now, it's super adorable. So. Can we make that full screen, Larissa, somehow? There we go.
Oh, and unmute your mic.
Is she frozen?
Oh, I think there we go.
Oh, she's not muted, is she?